We are delighted now to welcome here in the studio Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Shai Har-Tzvi, Senior Fellow at the Institute for Policy and Strategy at the Reichman University, and also joining us, the dear Colonel Miri Eisin, Director of the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism, also from Reichman University. Thank you both so very much for joining us. Colonel Eisin, we must of course begin with the far from surprising and yet important American veto at the UN Security Council, the irony of Russia calling on Israel to cease the fire, the fact that the United Arab Emirates initiated this bid, many different elements in this event to address, and yet the bottom line is that there's only one. I will allow myself to use a war terminology here. Only one buffer zone between Israel and the international community, and this is the U.S.
And the U.S., as always, is the one who stepped up. And I say as always, the support of the United States for over 2 months in understanding the depth of what is going on and what needs to be done is in the face of governments around the world, but certainly of public opinion. In this case, Ellie, I think what we need to note is the growing gap. And that gap is between Israel, the United States administration, and most of the United States. There's a difference between college campuses and the base of what supports the United States and other Western governments around the world who understand the need to destroy Hamas military capabilities and understand that there is no easy, nice way to go about it. And between the international community, that voice of the United Nations that is saying it's all about, and I'm being very crude here perhaps, that it's all about the victims. Hamas started a war. A war is a terrible thing. And in this case, the continuation of Israel's capabilities against the Hamas, this is part of that challenge, and the United Nations is not caught in the middle. It's taking a stand, and we really should every day not just thank President Biden, because it's not just him personally, but it's the deep understanding of the U.S. administration of a very long backing in that sense that understands that what needs to be done is to destroy Hamas, and there's no easy, nice way to do so.
And before we get your take, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Har-Tzvi, just to update our viewers as we speak, a round of red siren alerts being heard in southern communities along the Israel-Gaza border. The first such round this morning. Overnight there were a couple, but this morning fresh barrage of rockets towards Israel's south. Dr. Har-Tzvi, indeed it seems that this veto and the frameworks of the UN Security Council is not a surprise, but it does come as this proposed soft deadline, not harsh deadline, is being presented to Israel. What does it mean in terms of the dynamic between Jerusalem and Washington at the moment?
I think the most important thing to understand is that actually we share the same strategic goal. And as Colonel Eisen has said, to eliminate Hamas. Because the U.S. administration understands very well that the outcome of the war will have a huge implication for all the Middle East. It will have implication on Jordan, Egypt, the Gulf states, and other players in the region. Therefore, they understand that there is no other way but to eliminate Hamas. Because if not, just to imagine if Hamas will be able to stand after the war. That means that they will try to take over Judea and Samaria, and then they might risk the stability in Jordan. So from the U.S. administration, there is no other way but to eliminate Hamas. However, there are some disputes regarding the tactical maneuvers, regarding the humanitarian aid. But as I said, and this is we must remember, at the strategic level, at the moment, we share the same goal. However, when we are look at the day after, there we have a huge. We might have a huge dispute with the U.S. administration because how they see the Palestinian arena and the involvement of Palestinian Authority in the day after is quite different completely than the current Israeli government sees the situation.
Did the current Israeli government perhaps not even willing to engage at the moment in talks of the day after?
And this is one of the main problems, because all the international community, the Americans, the European, even the players in the region are talking about the day after. We must think what is our strategy in the day after.
Yeah, well, I will allow myself to once again this morning find refuge in the words of Lewis Carroll in Alice's Wonderland. If you don't know where you want to go, Colonel Eisen, it doesn't matter which path you take. And in this respect, should Israel becomes more willing to discuss the day after plans, will it make the soft deadline even softer, perhaps?
There are those inside Israel and the Israeli government who are absolutely trying to deal with this issue of the day after. And it's not just institutes like the one that Dr. Hart-Zvi is in or the one that I run, both at Reichman University, also within the government circles. But as you all stated clearly, it's a question of the government itself and where they're going. I am actually going to say something a little bit different. I absolutely acknowledge and understand the importance of how we look at the day after. But we're already, after over 2 months of fighting, at an in-between stage, and this interim stage is something that already needs to be addressed now, and it actually doesn't even matter about the day after. But there are certain aspects that Israel has stated clearly that everybody agrees on inside Israel. When I say everybody, this government, and I would say any government, and that has to do not just with what not Hamas, but that the Gaza Strip would be demilitarized, that it needs to be, somebody has to do that Israel is very clear on the need to be able to control what goes in, especially so that we don't have yet again this kind of buildup in capabilities that Hamas did. Now, when you take that, that's a very security aspect. There are implications already right now in the dialogue on the day after. If demilitarized, who's going to be there afterwards? What do you do in the meantime? I'm not the one right now here in December to give a clear vision of that day after. It has to do with how much of Hamas capabilities we manage to destroy. That looming deadline impacts how much we manage to destroy. Hamas built their capabilities. Ellie, they've been building it for more than the 16 years